Hello, my name is Daniel Burgess. Welcome to Tales from the Cryptographers. Today I'm going to be talking about a craft of sorcery that was used to create the Bible, the version of the Bible that has come to us through Western civilization via the Greek manuscripts and the Masoretic text of the Hebrew. It's completely written in a form of sorcery. Uh, I didn't want this to be true. I'm just going to get right into it. I didn't want any of this to be true. I studied the Bible to be a good Christian, and I avoided the occult. I didn't learn from Kabbalists. I didn't learn from any kind of European systems of magic. I avoided theosophy. It kept rearing its head over and over and over, but I just kept trying to avoid it and not pay no attention to it. I studied the Bible. I studied the Masoretic text and the Textus Receptus, the Byzantine manuscript types. And the Protestant that I learned to study the Bible from, he taught Gematria, but he didn't really know a lot about it. And I spent a better part of 20 years trying to get answers that were really hard to get. Like, the practice of Gematria is what they mean by Gematria is Hebrew alphanumerics. And Hebrew alphanumerics are as old as the biblical literature, and they're as old as the forms of the alphabet that we have. Here's the absolute cipher. It's a little awkward for me because of the way it's set up. I have to record without like showing my slides, and I have to add them to the screen later, so bear with me. But here is what's called the absolute numbering, and this is the Hebrew alphabet. It reads from right to left, and the alphanumerics rise by powers of 10. So when you get to 10, it doesn't go to 11, 12, 13. Instead, it rises by powers of 10 and goes from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. When you get to 100, it goes to 200, 300, 400. It ends at 400 because the Hebrew alphabet's 22 letters. And this is called the absolute numbering. And in Hebrew, they refer to this as Mispar Hikrachi. Hopefully I'm saying that something close to right. But we call it the absolute numbering, and that comes from studying Hebrew language. They call the form of a word that hasn't been modified to be in a sentence the absolute form of the word. So this term for absolute numbering comes from a grammatical term. And I always wanted to know why it rose by powers of 10. And I couldn't really find a straight answer for that either, but searching for answers to the meaning of these things, y'all, nobody's ready to hear me teach what I'm about to teach you, and this is going to be quite a shock for a lot of Christians. I invite you, if you're a Christian, I've sought to understand what I was reading, and a lot of the Christians in my life were really evil and really valued a lot of other things besides human life, and it kind of led me further and further into the wilderness where I was free to study the Bible, and it's just me and God and the Word of God and nobody else interfering. I learned my way into being free to learn whatever I wanted, and well, I wanted to know what the writers meant. And I thought in my young man's mind, I started reading the Bible when I was 7. When I learned to read. I learned to read when I was 7, and I dedicated reading to studying the Bible. And I didn't care too much for school or anything like that. But But nobody's ready for the answers that I found. I wanted to find the writers and what they meant, because whoever wrote down the story, whoever created the story, knows what it meant, and and we don't really need to be fussing and fighting over what it meant beyond that. But everybody, the theological world exists to delegate authority, and that'll probably come out in the teaching a little bit. But so the absolute value of numbering isn't the only cipher to use, and when you get, it's where you need to start by all means, because it's the tradition for sure, but it's more than that. But as far as using this form of numbering, one of the better articles I found was by a guy named Solomon Gantz, and he wrote Hebrew numerals and it was published in the Proceedings of the American Academy for Jewish Research in 1932. And he says, I'll refer to his work again. He says, the Shemitic alphabet was in a state of continuous change and flow until final stability and order was brought about through numerical values. By receiving the numerical values, the letters obtained the character of numerals, and their order was firmly established as that of the numerals. Thus, the survival of the order of the letters is due to their numerical values, which had the effect, as it were, of a chain. We may therefore conclude that the alphabetic ordinalia, which is what they refer to, the order of the alphabetic ordinalia are in principle as old as the present alphabetic order. And I'll show you some things about the text that imply that not only whoever wrote the word was aware of these alphanumeric values, but that they were a master of it, and they were a master of a literary craft of unifying alphanumerics with the narrative of the story and the literature. But here's how you calculate a word. I have the word, the beginning, the first word of Scripture, down below the alphabet. And here I've connected a line to each letter of the alphabet. I can show y'all. I think it'll be healthy for me to do some of this for y'all so you can just see it. But wow, I'm getting confused just for y'all. Barashit. See how good my handwriting is gonna be for you. So there's Barashit, and so here's 200, 1, 300, 10. That's my little yod. I did not a very good job. And 400. So I do the hundreds and then I go down. So 400, 700, 800, 900, and 10, 11, 13. 913. So the whole value of the beginning is 913. Oh, of course I lost my cap. It's like a curse. All I had to do was say I lost it, and it was in my hand that quick. Keep my board fresh. But so that's how you calculate a word, and so each letter has a value, and then you total it together for a word because the letters are grouped together just like our idea of a number would be. But here's the Greek alphabet, which they referred to the Greek alphanumerics as isopsophy. Yeah, Greek isopsophy, which is the alphanumeric system that the Greeks were using. They don't know if the Phoenicians started this or if the Greeks started this, and they're not sure which one came first. And that argument bears in on some things that I'm going to show y'all. About how old this stuff is and where this stuff came from, because nobody's asking the right questions. Nobody knows what's in the literature. Y'all aren't going to believe what I'm going to show you. But the Greek alphanumeric values, the sixth letter is the sixth number, the sixth letter is missing because the actual sixth letter of the Greek alphabet is something they discontinued to use for the language as a whole. And the same was true for the 90th letter, the letter that held the 90th place. So there's no letter with a 90th value by the time they wrote the New Testament in Greek, and the Old Testament in Greek, which I don't want to get into textual criticism necessarily too much. But the oldest Old Testaments, until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, manuscripts of the Old Testament, until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, was 1080, and so the Old Testaments that were around that we knew of were in Greek from the time of Christ, and they didn't find a complete Old Testament. They didn't find a complete bunch of books of anything. There's a lot of commentary and lots of parts of books. I'm not an expert on the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I use them. Other ciphers, there's Mispar Siduri, which I'm probably not saying that right, but that's referring to the ordinal numeration, or to number them in order the way we would just count, like a regular natural series counting. Which there I calculated Bereshit with the ordinal numbering, and it equals 76. So I'll come back to the lesser numbering. But the words Gematria itself, Hebrew rabbis in approximately the 2nd century transliterated the Greek word Gematria into Hebrew. They used Hebrew letters to spell a Greek word and use a Greek word. In the Talmud around the 2nd century, Gematria is a rabbinical name for alphanumerics, the assignment of the numbers to each letter of the alphabet. The first use of the word Gematria in reference to Hebrew alphanumerics was in the 2nd century by Rabbi Eliezer ben Jose ha-Galili in the 29th of his 32 rules of exegesis. So in the 29th rule of Eliezer ben Jose's 32 rules, which, what did I say the name of that was? The Barita on the 32 rules, which Baraita, I do my best. It's a Judean rabbi, MSS. It was lost but found in 1933 by Enlo H.G., the Midrash of 32 Rules of Interpretation. You can reference the Jewish Quarterly Review 23, number 4 from 1933, pages 357 through 67. But that's an interesting story of how it was lost and found. You can look that up. So Solomon Gantz, in his article on Hebrew numerals, he didn't believe that that they used the word gematria in the sense of geometry that the Greek philosophers like Plato and Archimedes would have used the word geometry. And he argues that they only used the word to describe encryption. Encryption in Hebrew literature, which a lot of people really get angry. Like, I'm so surprised. People get mad at me just because I say there's encryption in the Bible. Like, people are so ignorant of the book that they stake their whole salvation on. Listen up, y'all. I'm going to tell y'all about something real. But Solomon Gantz says in Hebrew numerals, he rejected the etymology of gematria belonging to the Greek word for geometry. I don't think... His argument was they never used geometria to indicate alphanumerics. The Greeks never did. And that the Hebrews never used the transliterated Hebrew form Gematria to describe geometry, but I just don't believe he was educated enough on what's encrypted in the Bible. And I'm going to show you some of that today. But so transmutation, Gematria is transmutation, and like whoever wrote the Bible was like they looked at every letter and saw a number. As fast as they read it, they saw a number. We can't think like they thought. We can't, like our Western American mind like is not really doing what they were doing with the text. And if each letter was a number, then it can take the form of the number. And if numbers can take all kinds of different... I'm just going to have to explain some of the craft of counting and numbering, because that's what this stuff is, and it's come a long way. But this is all biblical. Transmutation of words into numbers and into form is all biblical, and I'm going to show you that. But numerical transmutation, to transmute, by transmutation I mean to alter in form or appearance or nature, to transform. To permute something is the ability to change every possible arrangement. So what I have down here is an example with the word the beginning, Bereshit, and it equals 913 in the absolute cipher, and it equals 76 in the ordinal cipher, and it equals 13 in what's known as the lesser cipher, which I told you I'm going to come back to that. But if you add 9 plus 1 plus 3 of 913, it equals 13. And if you add 1 plus 3, it equals 4. So 913 will reduce down to 4. So it's a form of 4. I'm going to show you what all this stuff is. I know people think this is insane, but there's a reason for all of this, I assure you. But so 913 breaks down to 13. 76, its other form, also breaks down to 13, because 7 plus 6 is 13. So, and then its lesser value is also 13, and 1 plus 3 is 4. So it all breaks down to 4. It all takes you down to the same place. And so these are all transmutation. These are permutations of 913. 76, 13, and 4 are permutations of 913. And 913 is transmutable into the form of 76 and 13. And 4 is 10. That was something that Pythagoras or by the time Plato had taken over, one of them, like that was the riddle, is 4 is 10. You'd have to be able to tell him how 4 is 10. And it's because if you count 1 above, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, well, 1, 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. So that was the riddle, but it's because numbers form triangles. And so if a number is equally a triangle, all natural series, if you count 1 above 2 above 3, a natural series, it forms a triangle. So all numbers will take the forms of triangles. And so numbers can be transmuted into shape, and shapes and can be transmuted into words. So but transmutation is biblical. The Torah teaches number transmutation and encryption from the beginning, at the beginning of Genesis. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." Signs is the word oath. It means to signal, to signify something. This signifies that. Seasons is the word moed, and it means this means that. So this for that. Days is referring to the circle of the sun, which divides the earth in half into a lit portion and a dark portion. So a circle with a line through it can represent day and night, and the circle of the sun around the earth. And that would be the lesser circle because it takes 24 hours to form. And then years would be a greater circle because it takes 365 times the amount of time to make this circle in the sky. And so greater and lesser circles indicate ratio. And so the Bible is telling you that the stars indicate ratio, and that the stars are to signify something else, and that the seasons mean this means that. So everything that the Bible says about the stars is going to apply to this decree of transmutation, that this can mean that, this can signify that, and that these things can represent ratio. Genesis 15:5, and he, hold on a second, and he brought him forth from abroad, and said, Look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto them, So shall thy seed be. So that was God making a covenant with Abraham. So your seed is going to be like the stars. God's offspring is going to be like the stars of heaven. And Psalms 147:4, he telleth the number of the stars, and he calleth them all by their names. To call something by its name meant to give it its power or its essence. Psalms 19:1 say, The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. That's one of my favorite verses. But heavens declare is the word cipher, and a cipher is connected to a circle, and the word for scroll, and the inscriber of a scroll is called a sofer, and they call the Torah sofer, Sefer Torah. Sorry, I had to jog my memory there. It's embarrassing. Yeah, Sefer Torah, because it's the circle Torah, and it's because it's a scroll, and scrolls are a circle, and they all get in the circle together, and they read through the circle of the scroll through the circle of the year as one. And it's one of the most beautiful things that people are doing on the planet, especially as far as some mystical, magical stuff goes. Man, the people of the circle are cool. But so stars, like when he tells Abraham to number the stars, he's telling the stars each have a number. That's what he's saying. When he tells Abraham to tell the stars is it should be the word mispar. Let me show y'all. It's one of these words, but the word mispari is the word to number. And so I'm just going to take you through a few of these words. Mispar, Brown's Driver Briggs defines it as a number or a tale, like to tell a story. By count, in number, according to number, recounting, or a relation. Strong's defined it as a number, definitely, arithmetically, or indefinitely, large, innumerable, small, and few, abstractly, narration, and so forth. So misvar is the word for numbering, and it can mean to tell a story or to narrate. Another form of the word misvar means to number, and it was the name of one of the ones who returned with Zerubbabel to rebuild the temple when they left Babylon under the Messiah of Persia, the Messiah from Persia. And so it was a name, but they're telling you, it's the same word that means to number. And then you also have the word mispereth, And Mispereth also means to number, and it was also the name. Is basically a different spelling of the same guy who came back with Zerubbabel. But it means to number. It's feminine of enumeration, according to Strong. And so Mispereth is the feminine form of the word mispar, is what he's saying. And then you have the word safar, and that's the word cipher. That's the word from Psalms 19, where the heavens declare the glory of God. And that means to count, recount, or relate. To take account of, to reckon, to rehearse, to talk, to count exactly or accurately, to be recounted, rehearsed, or related, enumerated. A secretary, a scribe, and an official scribe, which I told you they call them sophers, which it's the same word. And a primitive root properly to score is with a mark or a tally, and I'm going to show y'all some of this. To inscribe, to enumerate, to recount, to celebrate, to commune and declare. And so Mispari comes from the word Malku. Under Mispereth, you'll see it comes from 4437. 4437 is the word Malku. Those are Strong's numbers, so people that don't read Greek or Hebrew, if they read English and can count, they can look up the English word and it'll match a number. For those of y'all who are intimidated about learning how to read Greek or Hebrew, some scholars in the 1800s made sure you didn't have to. And if you hadn't heard about that, it's a sad thing, because your preacher should have told you about it, because some Christian, in the 1800s gave that to you. Anyways. But Malkuth is the word royalty or reign or a kingdom. Kingly authority, the realm of a territory, the reign of time. That's what the word Malku means. Dominion, abstract, kingdom, kingly, realm, or reign. It's a form of the word Malkuth, and Malkuth means royalty, royal power, reign or kingdom, sovereign power. So the words for number are connected with the rule and dominion of an empire and a king over a kingdom. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Another form of the word is Malik, and that means to become king or queen, or to reign, or to become queen or king. It's just what... It's from a primitive root, to reign or to ascend the throne, causatively to induct into royalty. Y'all, the art of counting and numbering is how you induct someone into royalty. The Greek version of the Old Testament translates mispar as dunamis, which means power, as arithmetic, which means to count, as biblion, which means a written scroll. Your word Bible sounds like Babylon, don't it? Sorry, I can't read. It's a form of arithmeo. It's katarithmeo, which means to count together. They translated mispar as plethos, which means fullness of multitudes. That sounds fancy. It's usually referring to something specific. I didn't have time to look it up. Suntalalia, which means completion or execution. So to count something can also mean to complete something. And people that know about the Sabbath, it meaning to rest or to be sevened, it had the idea of being completed or perfected. And that has the idea of being counted. Jesus told some parables about counting sheep and goats. Anyways, sure that's familiar. The word arithmetic is the Greek word for numbering or counting, and it means to number or count, obviously. But it comes from arithmos, which is a fixed or definite number, as reckoned up or tallied up to count. And it comes from the word arrow, which means to raise up or to elevate. By implication, to take up or away, to raise, to keep in suspense of the mind, specifically to sail away, a Hebraism, to expiate like sin. Like the reason why I traced arithmetic to arrow is because the root word of arithmetic, to count, means to lift up. And that's what the Hebrew words are saying, is that to learn the art of counting is going to make you royalty. It's going to lift you up above others. It's the knowledge of the sons of God to rule the earth is what it is, y'all. The Bible makes this stuff really clear. And we just, I'm figuring this out was crazy, by all means. But I wanted it to make sense. And boy, does it make sense now. But it's like I'm teaching you an ancient mystical art of counting, and it's not an easy thing to understand, but I'm gonna do my best to give y'all what you need to see it. Create. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Create is the word barar, and it means to cut or to divide. And when you're counting, you start with one. One's the source. And if you make a reflective plane, then across the mirrored plane, you get 2. And the space in between 1 and 2 creates a midpoint, and that midpoint can be considered 3. And 1 is 3, and 3 is 1. And all numbers take the form of 1, 2, 3, which is why this is a saying. And this is a saying, and it goes way back. And if you start thinking it through, we're going to get into why we use base 10 here in a little bit. But we're going to start with how all numbers are 1, 2, and 3. And so 1 is the source, and so it forms all number. And I'm telling you 1 is 3, and you can't really measure the source without having 2. But 2, they could be infinitely further and further apart. There's no way to make the distance between 2 points relative. You need 3 points to be able to triangulate to fix one down, to make a real measurement. You need the midpoint between 2 points to start measuring something and to create a scale of numbers and a scale of power to determine what reality is. It's a lot to take in. I can't imagine somebody trying to just explain this in a conversation. But so create means to cut or divide, and when we cut or divide, we're creating a mirrored plane, and we're going to transform 1 into 2, and then the space that we made in the middle there, that's what 2 means. 2's the empty place, the divided space. It's empty in the middle. All even numbers will fit inside of 2. So 4 would be 2 and 2 across a reflective plane. So you get 1, and across a reflective plane, it's 2. So now we got 2, and we're going to make another reflective plane here. So we got 4. And so now we have this gap here in the middle. And we're going to put the 1, the seed, in the middle, and it's going to be 5. And then that's going to become 3 on both sides of a empty place. 6. You see? So forming a natural series, 1 is 2, 2 is 4, 3 is 6, 4 is 8, 5 is 10. So all even numbers fit in the compartments of 2 with the midpoint in the middle being empty, if you can see that. So even numbers are feminine because they have the power of the empty place in the middle. That's the womb of creation, where you can put the seed of the source inside to form offspring. And this is counting. Talking about counting. I'm talking about numbers. So all numbers are a triangle. So 1 is 3, 1 is a triangle. Let's look a little closer at all numbers being triangles. Here's a chart. And so a number, what is a number? It's an idea. It's something in our imagination. But it can be real, and life can make it real, and then we can make it real too. So since all numbers form triangles, so all shape, all form, all numbers, all language, all people, all good, all bad is all one inside of the source, you know? And so it has to start to separate and become more complex to diversify what's in the substance of the all is one. But so that's part of 1 being 3. But here you can see T1 stands for triangular number 1. So triangular number 2 is 3 units there, and so you have the 1 above the 2, and so 2 is 3. And so T3 is 6 units, which is the 1 above the 2 above the 3. And T4 is 10 units. And so as you keep counting, you keep getting another layer to the triangle. And the triangle grows larger and larger. And basically, with triangular numbers, every edge would represent the placeholder of the natural series that you're counting. Natural series is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so wherever you stop, like that represents a triangle because you counted to it. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, 1's its own being. It has its own life and its own soul, its own substance, you know. So 1 is there when I say 1. When I say 2, 2 is there. I just said 1, so 1's there, and now 2's there, so there's the 3. You see? This stuff's a little funny. Triangles. So each natural series is forming this triangle. As you count, you get each layer, and if the number is even, then you get 3 outer triangle numbers encapsulating 1 in the middle, which you can kind of see. By the time you get to T5, if it's a odd number, 5's odd, so there's a part in the middle. Number 3, all male odd numbers have a part in the middle. So it's not an empty place in the middle. There's something put in there, a seed, and now it's got parts. It's masculine. The idea of seeding a womb is masculine. And so if a triangle number is odd, then it has a smaller triangle breaking through the midpoint of each edge of the triangle number. And this is what I would consider a behavior or a characteristic of triangular numbers, which all numbers can take the form of. So in the beginning, the source divided. That's literally like how you could translate the first 3 words of Genesis. The beginning, which is like saying first or source. But Elohim means the source of power, which is the source of numbers, which is the source of everything. And it doesn't have to be number, because a number is a letter. Well, what's a letter? Well, a letter is a sound, and together it forms a word that represents something. Well, that's a number too. We're all kind of numbers. Like, that's a Kabbalist thing, you know, where letters of fire animating our body. And we really do have a bunch of fire, electricity inside of us. And if it's electricity, it has to begin with 1, 2, 3. So, like, we really are a bunch of numbers, like the Matrix. But it's a philosophy, and it's like your imagination. I don't know. It's a way of understanding some stuff that you couldn't understand otherwise. I know that. But Anyway, so, oh man, this stuff is hard. I'm just going to keep going and just, because it's never going to be perfect. Anyways, so what I was saying about 2, here's the chart showing it, dividing a space around the 1 creates the empty place. So really, I mean, it's like, bink, I made a point, and now I'm going to make a circle around the point, and that's a reflective plane. And so any direction from the center, you get the reflection and hits 2, and since it's a circle, bing, 3, which maybe I can show you this a little better. But so you get the point, and then you twirl it and make a space around the point, and so the circle is now a reflective plane, and so we get a point over here, and so now we got 2 points, and so that's going to be 1, 2 over here, and well, now I got 3 points here, so 1, 2, 3 points here. You see, if you keep reflecting it across the plane back and forth, you're counting. So once you unleash a light in an infinite mirror, and you get the mirrors lined up and it makes that tunnel and goes on forever, well, the light bing, 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 like going through the mirrors is counting as fast as it can travel through the image of the tunnel of light. Anyways, that's what counting is, but so the reflective plane is the space, it's this imaginary space that's around everything, and if you reflect light back at something, it can manifest something else, is kind of the idea. Gosh. But so I really should have been using this chart when I was explaining that, but this is the chart showing all the odd numbers and stuff. I'll probably cut this out and put that in there. But masculine power is the ability to divide things into ratio. And when you take an odd number, and we're going to like 3, so you have 2 here, and then we're going to impregnate it with the third, and so now we have a greater and a lesser portion. And so all odd numbers are like that. We're going to take the midpoint here, and we got 2 even sides on both sides, but the male power of putting 1 in the middle has the power to balance or to take a side and make a lesser side, so a winner and loser. And so that's the scale of power. And so you can, this is all going to be base 10. This is all about base 10 and base 10, from the 10 fingers. And so masculine power can divide the 10, which is a form of 1, so it's the 1. So we're counting. We're going to divide 1 into 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6, 5 and 5, and the scales are balanced, and then you just go up from there. 6 and 4, 7 and 3, 8 and 2, 9 and 1. And so those are the scales of masculine power in a basic way. And to divide the 1 into these ratios is what it is to create. And all number and all being manifest within the circle of time or experience. Like without time, there's no way to separate everything. It's all just one. And so as energy travels across time, it's moving through the circle, and everything's happening in circles in all directions, And so the idea of numbering is going to occur on a circle. And when you put numbers on a circle and divide the perimeter of a circle evenly as you count, that's how you create polygons, and polygons are shapes. So all numbers in the circle represent shape. And so all numbers are a form of geometry. And I don't think if Solomon Gantz understood that, and especially not if he understood what they were putting in the literature, I don't think he would have said what he said. But the circle is a type of bottle, and you take 1, and then you take 2, you create the midpoint 3. If you bring the end and the beginning together, it forms a circle. And this is how they're writing the stories. I did a presentation on literary frames, if you want to look at that. But the literary frames, they come from the motions of heaven, but that is also how we number. So how we, like, arithmetic is also where they got the idea for their literary frames. And I wouldn't say that they got it from, this is all the language of the sons of God. But so when you bring a line end to end and form a circle, you got a midpoint. That's the opposition to the entry, where you got an opening in the bottle, an opening in the circle. It forms a bottle, And so I'm taking nothing and I'm bending it into something, and I'm drawing meaning into it. And now this circle signifies 2 or 232 or something like that. And so creating a number is a form of spirit conjuring, and it's just the beginning of it. So when you put 1 through 9 on a circle, which I call the order of 9, I was calling it the circle story of 9. This is a circle story, a number. But when you put 1 through 9 on a circle and you keep counting, and when you get to 9, and you just keep spiraling around, so 10 is above 1, 11's above 2, 12's above 3. If you keep counting this way and spiraling out, no matter how far you expand the numbers, arranging them in a series of 9 will cause the numbers to reduce to themselves. So 1 is 10, is 19. 1 plus 9 is 19. It forms columns. So here's a picture showing you the columns a little more clearly. You see 2, 11, and 20. 11, 1 plus 1 is 2. 20 is a form of 2. 3, 21, and 12, both are form of 3. When you add them together, here's a chart showing the 9 pillars of numerical descent is what I'm calling this. And so I just ran them up to the 100th series. But the descendants of 1 in the first column, 1, 10, 19, 28, 37, 46, 55, 64, 73, 82, 91, and 100. No matter which one of those numbers, if you add them together, it'll reduce to a single digit 1. And the same is true for any of the columns. Take the descendants of 8. 8, 17, 1 plus 7 is 8. 26, 2 plus 6 is 8, 35, 3 plus 5, and so forth. And so this explains why the numbers rise by powers of 10 in the absolute method. It's because they're respecting the fact that there's an order of 9 and a descendant tree of these numbers, and you can reduce them down to their essence of where they came from in their source. And we're a lot like these numbers, and that's kind of what they're trying to say. But that explains what's known as Mispar Katan Mispari. And that's where you use a lesser numeration. And so it's all connected to the order of 9. And there's things that I'm going to skip right now, but there's indications in the idea of counting and numbering that is telling us to use base 10. If I come across them, I'll try to point them out to you, but I have that ready for some other material. But let's get into some Gematria calculating, and let's just get into it. I'm excited to show you some of this stuff, and this stuff is It's about cryptography and encryption. And they're teaching a craft of encryption. And if you go after that and you see that the craft of encryption is connected to royalty, sorcery, sorcery comes from the word sors, Latin. It means to count. I should have made that clear. This is all a form of sorcery. It's a form of royal sorcery, and it's a royal knowledge that makes you worthy of being king. It makes you royalty. These people have been ruling the world with these secrets, and I'm happy to share them with you. Nobody taught them to me but the Lord and a lifetime of study. But the first verse of Genesis is 7 words and 28 letters. Here's the verse right here. Bereshit barar Elohim et hashemayim et haaretz. And the source separated, or first source separated into spirit, into matter. Well, that's when you speak, right? When I speak, words are coming, like the spirit. They say the word for spirit is the word for breath. It's the word for wind. So when I'm talking, my spirit's coming out of you. So that's word magic. And when I stab you and you bleed out, your spirit comes out of you. I'm separating spirit from matter. So it's the authority of life and death. In the beginning, the source separated spirit from matter. He took the power of life and death. The king, in the beginning, the king takes the power of life and death. This is iconic language, and it's made to be moldable like clay. They'll tell you this when you study Hebrew. But there's some things happening with the structure. It's 7 words. And So you get the 1 through 7 in the first line. So that's a big deal. And in the beginning, God, heaven, earth. So there's the 3 inside of the 7 words. But if you number each letter, there's 28 letters. The 7th triangular number is 28 units. So the first verse of Scripture can be transmuted into the 7th triangular number, and that gives you the ability to arrange the letters in the form of the 7th triangle number, like I did here. I like that all right. I wish I did something cooler with the background, but I love this, and I love that the first verse of Genesis can take this form. I think that's pretty amazing. I do. But so if you number them, you get 1 through 28. If you numbered 1 through 28, the natural series, but instead rose by powers of 10, like the absolute cipher, continuing past 22, the alphabet stops at 400. If you go up to 28, you get 6 more placeholders, and it takes you up to a perfect 1,000. So I believe that's very significant. That 1 through 28 gives you 1,000 on a rising by powers of 10 natural series scale. I don't know how natural it is rising by powers of 10, but you get what I mean. You can see it in the picture there. But there's a connection between 7 and 28. 7 times 4 is also 28. And that's the idea of the month. There's not a 28-day month, but the imposition of a 7-day work week and calling it a month is like a 28-day moon. The month is the word moon, and if you're saying that we got to go on a 7-day week schedule, like the implication of 7 times 4 representing the month and putting us on a calendar is there. I spoke to somebody official. I don't want to say who they are, but I spoke to a Jewish person who really understands a lot of this stuff. He doesn't like my freedom. He's bound to the tradition. God bless him, and I respect these people. And I respect why they don't want people breaking the mold with this stuff. But he said that the 28 represents the lit portion of the moon, and leaving a day and some change for the new moon, which it's not exactly right. But the idea of a 28th day month is a regal imposition of a 7 days work schedule, where you work 6 and rest 1. And I like to imagine, so we're going to see a lot of 3 7s in a minute. I like to imagine 3 for me, 4 for the king, or vice versa, 4 for me and 3 for the king, I think that's a lot better than what we got, that's for sure. They want you to work 90 hours a week in this country for the king, and they want you to take 0 reward for it. And I think they need to take that and shove it wherever they got it from. But anyways, the idea of a 28-day month is it can't be traced to Babylon. I found an article from NASA, which I don't have the article. I don't have time to go get it right now. But you can see it on my Telegram on the resource page, and where I explain this calculation. But so the Babylonians averaged the synodic month, which was 29.53 days, with the sidereal month, which was 27.21 days. And that's the difference between the moon actually returning to the same place in the sky versus it being like visible. And so when you average 29.53 and 27.21 together, it equals 28.37, which there's a 37 for us. It's just a little special bonus there. But so I'm showing you this stuff to show you how the first verse of Genesis, you find these different representations of counting, and you can count 1 through 7, you can count 1 through 28, you can count 1 through 1,000. And so you get 7 and 28 together with the letters and the words, and that's also the seventh triangular number, and it also makes 4 times 7, which makes a square with each edge representing a space of 7. And so there's a lot of math going on in the first verse of Genesis, and we haven't even gotten started, really. So if you take the absolute value of the words God, the heaven, and the earth from the first verse of Genesis, together they equal 777. Elohim is 86, Hashemayim is 395, and Haaretz is 296. And all these numbers are amazing, and this stuff gets pretty crazy. But the 777 there, I thought that was significant. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. It's like a 7 for God, a 7 for heaven, a 7 for earth. And it's like 7, the idea is that it's taken form, Like when they wrote these words, they're creating an image for us to see. The people that forbid making images of God are making an image of God. And so, like, the form of the words on the scrolls can make 777. 3 God, heaven, earth can make 777. Well, that was really fascinating to me when I learned it. And I added up God revealing his name to Moses. And people will tell you that the name Jehovah is equal to, what is it, 25? I don't know what the absolute spelling of the word is off the top of my head, because I've always stuck to the one from the scroll. And when God told his name to Moses, it adds up to 21. It's spelled Aleph Hey Yod Hey, and so it equals 21. And it said, and God uses that exact spelling in the verse 3 times. So there's 21, and there it is 3 times. So God, heaven, earth is 777, and this is a form that God's soul is taken. Well, when God told his name to Moses, it was 21. 21's in the first verse in the form of God, heaven, earth is 777. And so I start thinking to myself, maybe this is about God taking form, like I'm saying, so if that's the case, then when God said be light, he's the spirit of the word, of the breath of the words is coming out of his mouth. Be light. And so that's a transformation of God's soul into the form of words, and then he's passing into the waters through the reflection he was staring at with the words be light. Everything that was made by the word. Well, it was made by the word be light. It's made by light moving into the water. So I'm like, well, if this is really God about, if this numerical representation of God as 7 and 3/7 is true, then when God said be light, then that should be connected to 7. That's what I was thinking. And so I added up the phrase be light, and it equaled 232. And I was kind of sad because I wanted it to equal 7 or 21, But then it hit me. 2 plus 3 plus 2 is 7. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's how I learned about Mispari Katan, or the lesser numbering. And I got addicted to that quick because it's how you start to figure this stuff out. But so 232 is the 8th decagonal number. And a decagon, 10 points on a circle, will unlock all geometry. Yep, the decagonal matrix will create all the platonic solids, and it'll unlock 4D forms and just all kinds of polyhedra, you name it. The sky's the limit. Yeah. So that's fascinating. 8's a cool number. I like that number. Has the idea of obedience in the New Testament. But so in Genesis 1 verse 5, where it says God called the light day, I'm like, well, I'll add that up too. And it called plus light plus day equals 610 together, and 6 plus 1 equals 7. And God called the light day. If you add all 4 of the words together, it equals 696. Which I should probably explain palindromic and numbers, but I think you'll get the idea of it as we keep going through this. But 6 plus 9 plus 6 is 21. So there it was again. And when God called the light day, called is a word that means to be summoned or to bring together. And it equals 317, and 317 was a form of 22/7, which equals 3.14, which is a circle. And when God's calling the light day, what's the day? It's a circle. So it's the circle of the sun. And so I'm like, man, I got to put this to the test. If I'm going to find all these this pattern of these 3s and these 7s, then let's look at where God commissioned the animals of sacrifice with the covenant of Abraham in Genesis chapter 15. And so I started just doing the Gematria and just calculating words and adding stuff up. And I'm looking at the text, and it says, God says to Abraham, take me a heifer 3 years old, and a she goat of 3 years, and a ram of 3 years, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in their midst, and laid one piece against another, but the birds he divided not. And I looked up that word 3 years of age, and it's the word shalosh, which means to triple, to multiply by 3, threefold. So I'm like, okay, this is an indication from the Sophers who created the Torah, telling me to multiply these words of these 3 animals by 3. It doesn't say that the turtle dove and the pigeon were 3 years of age, because they weren't. And so the significance is going to lie with that. But so I take the heifer, the word for heifer, which is I didn't transliterate these for myself. That would have been nice. Olga, I believe that's how you say that. Olga. Yeah, Olga's for heifer, and it equals 108. Ayin, Gimel, Lamed, Hay, 7, which Ayin 70, Gimel's 3, Lamed's 30, and Hay is 5. So it's 108 together. And when you multiply it by 3, you get 324. Oz is she-goat. Oz, Ayin 70, and Zayin's 7. So 77 times 3 is 231. And then Ram, which looks like Isle, equals 41. Aleph is 1, Yod is 10, and Lamed is 30. So 41 times 3 is 123. And when you lay them out in a row, just like the text says to do, just like God's telling Abraham to do, and you just quit pretending it's a story and just like take it as instructions about the words on the scroll. And so you lay each part down, and down the middle of these words is the form of numbers. It's divided by the number 232. The words be light. And that's exactly what God does in the story next. And it came to pass when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lantern passed between the pieces. And that was God participating in the covenant he was telling Abraham to make. So the numbers are acting out the story of the text, and they're doing it in the most beautiful and magical way. 7,000 in the 22 patriarchs of Israel. The patriarchs technically stop with Abraham or Terah, I suppose. But if you count all the way back to Adam and to God, sorry, I'm trying to be prompt. But in 1 Kings, the drama with the priest of Baal was going down, and I believe it's Elijah is arguing with God in the middle of that conflict, and God responds to him saying, I have left 7,000 in Israel of the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him. And this was quoted in the book of Romans. Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of God unto him, that I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal? That's Romans 11, 3 and 4. If you take the absolute value of the names of the 22 patriarchs of Israel, altogether they equal perfectly 7,000, which I'll show you. Here's the calculation of the names. So Adam equals 45. Seth, you don't count Cain because he was a murderer and his name would have been blotted out of the family tree, out of the tree of life. And then Seth means replacement, so you don't count Abel because Seth is Abel by all means. He has to live his life in his brother's name, and that's why his name means replacement. And then his son Enos is 357. His son Canaan is 210. Mahalalel 136. Jared 214. Enoch 84. Methuselah 784. Lamech 90. Noah 58. Shem 340. Arphaxad 605. Selah 338. Eber 272. Peleg 113. Reu 276. Serug 509. Nahor 264. Terah 608. Abraham, you got to use Abraham, not Abram. You got to use the righteous name God gave him. Equals 248. Isaac equals 208. And Israel, you can't use Jacob, the deceiver. You got to use his righteous name. Equals 541. And when you add up all of those names and their numerical value together, equals a perfect 7,000. But here's the rub: 7,000's a form of 7, and it came from 22 names. And 22 over 7 is Archimedes' constant, and it was the measurement for pi for over 1,000 years during this time period when this was, well, yeah, like I'm bringing up some issues with our history, because there's stuff in the Torah that's as old as Pythagoras, but it seems just as advanced, if not more. What's in the Bible seems more advanced than anything Pythagoras seems to have left behind in public. No telling what people are keeping in secret. But so those names I got directly from the text, from the manuscript of the book of Genesis in Hebrew, the Masoretic text, or the Tanakh. But it was Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 through 32, and that took us from Adam to Shem. And then Genesis 11 is the generations of Shem, verses 10 through 28 gives us Arphaxad through Terah. And then Genesis 17 and 5 gives us righteous name of Abraham. Genesis 25, 19 through 26 gives us Isaac. And Genesis 32, 28 gives us the name of Israel. That's where I got the spellings for all of those names. But and so what is that? These are the descendants that have the spirit of the seventh God living in them. That's what it is. And the so they're the vessel full of the seventh spirit, and the light shines from them. Well, that's the menorah, which there's some verses that teach that. But because the first verse of Genesis is 7 words and 28 letters, and that's 7 times 4, then you can divide each group of 7 letters. So you can make 4 divisions of 7 letters. And when you do this and you take the midpoint, which cutting the midpoint is how you make a number and release its power to make it take form. But so if you mark the midpoint of each group of 7 letters, it spells that word Shalishah that we just saw, to take the animals of 3 years of age to multiply by 3 to a third of something. And some people really don't like this, but I think they're trying to communicate this way. So you got 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and if so you got 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet to spell a word with, right? And so any word that you form in Hebrew, there can be up to 7,000 spellings of that word. Declensions, there can be up to 7,000 in Hebrew. So if you don't think people could have done this, let me just maybe not. I think people could have done it, especially over a long enough period of time. And I mean, the more you understand this stuff, it gets addictive. But that was the point I was trying to make. So what's the significance of triple in the first verse of Genesis? Well, I showed you how taking the words God, heaven, and earth and adding them together equals 777. That's called a triple rep digit. And there are 4 word combinations that yield triple rep digits in the first 7 words of Genesis. You can add the heaven to God's, and the second conjunction, which equals 407. That's an ox cart. A-T, that's the first and last letter of the alphabet, and it looks like a cow pulling a cart, and it's I always forget the grammatical term for I guess it's a preposition, to attach this word to that word. I hope I said that right. But it's cool, right? Like the ox cart is acting out, joining this word to that word. See, like the words act this stuff out. Like these guys get all mad at me for saying like the placement of the words in the symbol of the word has meaning beyond just like reading a story. People get so mad about that, but then they have to admit it with something like the ox cart preposition. Like these people just. Everybody wants to be in control. But so if you add the second conjunction with the heaven and gods, it equals 888. If you add the heaven plus the first conjunction, which equals 401, plus the word create, creates the word bar, it equals 203. 203 plus 401 plus 395, that equals 999. And if you take the word God plus the word beginning, that also equals 999. So, first thing about triple rep digits is if you add 9 plus 9 plus 9, you get 9, 18, 27, and so 27. If you divide 999 by 27, it equals 37. If you divide 888, if you add 8 plus 8 plus 8, you get 24. 888 divided by 24 equals 37. And this works for all of them. And it's because all triple rep digits reduce to 111 over 3, basically. The way I'm doing it, like if you add the sum average of 999 and then divide it by its average, that's because it all reduces to 111 over 3, the average. And so all triple rep digits divided by that equals 37. And that's why. It's just because 111 divided by 3 equals 37. But so if you add the 4 triple rep digits together that are in the first verse of Genesis through different combinations of the words, together they equal 3,663. And a third of 3,663 is 1221. And I'm introducing you to this pattern here, but we're just getting into it here. But so 37 is the 12th prime number, and 73 is the 21st prime number. So 3663 is manifested in the first verse of Genesis through all of the triple rep digits that it can form. You know, and this stuff, it shouldn't exist, and the odds of this stuff being here are miraculous, but you're going to see. Here's the first verse of Genesis. They built the structure of 3773 thematically into the verse. Let me sip this. But, so the first word of Genesis, well, it's like a billboard. Like, these people are building signs in the way they wrote the words on the scroll. And they tell you they're doing this. Nobody's listening. But the middle word of the 7 words, the midpoint, is marked by the first and last letter of the alphabet. And if you take the beginning and the end of a line, it forms a circle. So the alphabet's in a circle. That creates a mirror down the middle. And so this represents a mirror. And what's going to happen in the narrative? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. How? By looking into the surface of the waters. That's how. And so to take the beginning and the end is to make a circle, and that's to conjure a spirit, which you're going to do in the surface of the waters. What is that? That's sorcery. It's water scrying. But anyways, you're going to see. You're going to see. But so you got 2 letters in the middle, and then you got 5 letters on both sides of it. So if you take the mirror plus either side of it, you're going to have 7. You know, so the magic mirror can form 7 both ways. And then on either side of those 5 letters, you got 3 letters. So you got 3, 7 on this side of the mirror, 7 on that side of the mirror, 3. So it's thematically built into the structure of the first verse. And so that may seem a little far-fetched to you. You know, does that seem a little far-fetched? Well, let's make it less far-fetched. If you take the absolute value of all 7 of those words together and add them up, it adds up to 2,701. Now, talking about opposite reflections and palindromic reflections, we're going to do palindromic addition and add the opposite of 2701 to 1072. And when you add those two numbers together, you get 3773. So you think it's not built into the structure of the first verse thematically, in the structure of the 7 words being mirrored that way. We can get to 3773 by just adding the absolute value of the first verse to its palindromic opposite, which is what God's doing in the story. He's adding himself to the opposite form of himself. Nobody's reading the story, I don't think. God's transforming into everything in our world, including the big scary. But 2701 is the 73rd triangular number. The odds of that, right? So the 73rd triangular number, the midpoint is marked by the 37th triangular number. So 37 and 73 are built into the structure of the triangular form of the first verse of Genesis. And 37 is the 12th prime, and 73 is the 21st prime. So now we got 1221 again. The Flavian dynasty was coronated on 1221 at the end of the year 69 to bring in the 70th. Anyways, I don't want to scare y'all too much. But I mean, like, to say all of that's a coincidence is ridiculous. But so each edge of that triangle is 1 through 73. And the midpoint of 73 is 37. And the midpoint of 37 is 19. But that scale is a prime mid-prime scale or prime midpoint scale. So prime is power. So because it's the closest thing to the 1. Because the source can never be, well, I don't want to say stuff. Sorry. I don't think I know anything. The more I learn about this stuff. But, so 3773 being built into the first verse of Genesis, like, I mean, does it seem far-fetched to you, like, that represents this ratio in this prime scale? The first verse of John, it reads in arche in o logos, which I guess I could keep going. Kai o logos in pros ton theon kai theon in o logos. Which I met somebody that spoke Greek, and yeah, my Greek's pretty insulting. I'm sorry, but the word logos there, it equals 373 if you add it up. But it says in the arch. The arch is the intersection between two circles, and the arch is where you can form all number. Where you form triangles. See, triangles and circles are one, and that's not really a joke. I'm not trying to get into all of that, though. I'm trying to show y'all that this 373 pattern is real. In the beginning, in Proverbs, it says, I, wisdom, have dominion over subtlety and discover rebellions. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. Proverbs 8, 12, and 22 and 23. I, wisdom is the word chokmah, have dominion over subtlety and discover rebellions. Because the king's going to find you out. He's going to find your corruption. That's what Satan does, isn't it? It proves that you're corrupt. This word wisdom, so chokmah is spelled chet, kaf, mem, hey. With the absolute cipher, wisdom equals 73. With the ordinal cipher, wisdom equals 37. And with the reduced cipher, wisdom equals 19. So 73, 37, 19 represents a scale that improves that creates a measurement of eighths, so the eighth scale, the imperial eighths might sound familiar. If you put 1 through 73, 73 will be the full eighths, you know. 37 would be 1/2, and 19 would be a quarter on this scale. And this scale here, which is half and half a half, which is also 1.5 and 0.25, can be represented those ways. If you make these ratios with circles, it unlocks all geometry. This scale that's heavily encrypted into Hebrew literature unlocks all geometry. It unlocks golden ratio. Here's an example of using this scale to create a cube and with golden proportions. This is a cube. It's called a golden rectangle, and I've formed a cube by golden ratio extremely simply, extremely easily, and built the tetrahedron with the octahedron inside of it. This scale of 1937-73 represented as ratios on an 8 scale. I'm making it sound more complicated than it is. Like, it unlocks all phi base geometry. If you unify what's known as the seed of life, or the 6 circles around 1, the 7 circles, a unit of 7 circles. Circles make a natural unit at 7. If you unify, if you take a vesica as a unit of 1, and then make a seed of life pattern out of half-size circles, and then add half of that in the middle, it creates the vertices of the dodecahedron, simply and easily. And I easily created the icosahedron stellation diagram, which means all 59 of the icosahedron stellations are possible. You just have to build the stellation diagram from the 3 faces in hexagonal view. Sorry, I'm talking about geometry like you understand it, but for those of you that do, here's the rhombic stellation diagram. I'm like, well, maybe I can make the rhombic stellation diagram. That took no time at all to figure out and to make. Here's the 600 cell 4D analog icosahedron. This is a projection of a 4th dimensional shape, so it would be like its shadow with the light shining through it. I can't tell you a lot about that, but I know that you can use that basic setup there. Has tons of geometric forms in it, forms that I love to draw and create. But like the 73rd triangular number has other features, and this is like I need to wrap this up. But the 73rd triangular number, the midpoint is marked by the 37th triangular number, which is 703 units. And so the edge of the 37th triangular number is 37 units long. So what's on the outside of that is going to be 36 units. So you got the 36th triangular number on 3 sides of the 37th. And this is a form that the first verse of Genesis can take. But the 36th triangular number is 666 units. And Christians should be like, wait, what? 666 is built into the structure of the first verse of Genesis? I confirmed that this is at least 2,000 years old. They found a copy of the book of Genesis with the first page on it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I've verified that the divine mathematics are there. So like before they wrote the Gospel of John, 666 was in the verse of Genesis, first verse of Genesis. And what does that mean? 666, this is going to mess y'all up probably, but So 666 comes. Christians know about this, and this is how we know Gematria is biblical most of the time. Most of the Christians that practice Gematria got into it because they were trying to understand the mark of the beast. It's the most famous use of Gematria in the Christian end of Hebrew literature. But in Revelations 13, and I stood upon the sand of the... I'm paraphrasing this. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw the beast rise up out of the sea. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, exercising all the power of the first beast that came out of the sea, doing great wonders, deceiving them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the first beast that's rising out of the sea. And caused that as many would not worship the image of the first beast to be killed, and that no man should buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Mark is the word charagma, which that's a word that means coin with an image on it. You can't buy or sell without the money, the coin, or the image. They're going to kill you. They're going to put you to death if you don't have the money. Like we kill poor people in America. They've always known what this stuff is. They just are playing y'all for fools so they can take your money. Go get money for them. You can't get a bunch of Christians to go get a bunch of money for you if you tell them the mark of the beast is money. It's over. Anyways. Here is wisdom. Wisdom, I just showed you the ratio that wisdom represents. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So 666 represents the image of the beast that rises out of the sea. And I got a picture here of a wizard scrying in the surface of the water. I put the triangle number on the surface of the water, but that's the 36 triangular number there that he's looking at. That image credit goes to the Wizards of the Coast, which is some Magic the Gathering stuff from the 90s, I guess. But this isn't the first time there's a beast and the image of a beast being associated with the waters. I'm just going to read a couple of verses. I had a quote from Jacob Milgram, but I'm not going to go get it. Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength, and thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the water. Thou breakest the heads of the Leviathan in pieces, and give him meat to be to the people inhabiting the wilderness. When did God divide the sea? On the second day. The second day is when he divided the sea. Which really, all of the day 1, 2, and 3, the dividing of light from darkness. Well, what was the darkness? The waters were dark. So day 1 is dividing the sea. Day 2 divides the waters above from the waters below, creating a vault with pillars, but that's dividing the waters. And then the third day, he draws land up, just like we see a beast rising up from the sea. That's how the mountain of the earth rises up from the sea in the creation narrative. When the earth rises up from the sea, it describes restraining the waters from going over the land with a rope, like tying them up so they can't pass over the land. So that's when so the Leviathan, the destroyer, was present in the waters of chaos before the day 1, 2, and 3 of creation, basically. And this is a old Jewish myth that they know that the people that wrote the Bible, there's evidence that they believed this when they were writing these stories. Isaiah 27:1, that was Psalms 74:13 and 14, if I didn't say it. Isaiah 27:1, in the day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish the Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even the Leviathan, the coiled serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. So, the book of Job is my favorite verse, and they really tried to cover this up. But to whom hast thou uttered words? And this is Job 26, and I'm going to paraphrase some of this. I'm starting in the 4th verse. To whom hast thou spoken words, or whose spirit came from thee? This is Job rebutting his quote-unquote friends. And he's saying, who has uttered words and whose spirit came from thee? Like, who's speaking and causing a spirit to be formed like another human being? Like, nobody's doing that because we're not God, is what he's saying. The ghost, which is the Rapha or the Raphaim, they spiral under the waters. Spiral is a word that means to circulate. But the ghosts spiral under the waters in their tabernacle, or the Shakan, and the underworld is naked before him, and the destroyer Abaddon hath no covering. So this is describing God looking into the surface of the waters, and they're moving like the stars of heaven, but, so the waters are being stirred, like agitated. They tell a story in the gospel about the water being agitated, and it goes back to this, the agitated waters unleashing the power of God. Anyways, I'm going to show y'all that. But the underworld is naked before him, and the destroyer Abaddon, which is this destroying spirit, just like the Leviathan and the Behemoth and that old serpent, the dragon, the devil, that verse in Revelations mentions. But sorry, I'm getting older. He encloseth the face of his throne and spreadeth his cloud over it. God's concealed his image. He hath compassed or encircled the waters with bounds until the day and night come to an end. The pillars of heaven tremble, the ones I was talking about on the second day. The pillars of heaven tremble. Tremble is a word that means to triturate, like a grindstone, like you triturate. Anyways, the pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his rebuke. He divideth the sea with his power, and by his supreme skill he strikes the sea serpent. Rahab is another name of a dragon, sea monster. By his spirit he has enlightened the heavens, made the stars up in the sky, which heavens is the word darkness, and his hands have cast out the serpent, which a bunch of this is connected to the constellations in the sky, but that's like the image on the waters. I got so much of this stuff to say. But so every word is like a signal, like the first verse in Genesis is Barashit. Well, that word means first. So the word in the first place means first. So its location helps enhance and amplify the meaning. They're telling you exactly what's going on. And so if the first word does this, well, let's see what the first letter does. The first letter is B. B's number 2. 2 is the empty place in the middle, which is a home or a womb to form a soul. And that's what B means. B, as a letter, it symbolized a house or a tent. And they put a dot in the middle of the B, and they call it the dot in the palace. And that's the beginning of all things. 1, 2 is 3, right? But the letter B, the name is Bath. It comes from the word bath, which means a pool of water. And it was what they called a measurement of water. And the way you measured water was you put it in a container, like a bath. So the very first letter represents a container for waters. And what's God doing? He's staring into the waters. And what's he doing? He's making a home for his spirit to dwell. It's all in the first letter. But, so, I've showed you a bit of how 37 is built into the structure of the first verse of Genesis, and into the structure of wisdom, and into the names of God, and, it's a thing. And, so, if you multiply 913, which is the value of the first word of Genesis, by 37, you get 33,781. And that's the 37th octahedron number. And so an octahedron number is like taking a 1 above 4 above 16, something like that. But you're making a stack of units. I hate not telling you, right? I have to read all of this stuff right off the page. It's hard for me to keep up with this stuff. I don't even understand how I learned all this stuff, honestly. So each face of the first verse of Genesis is 2,701. And so in the center of the triangle number that it represents, you have each face of this octahedron. The 37th octahedron, each outer face has 703 units. If you stellated this octahedron, which had a value of 33,781, if you stellated the 37th octahedral number, you end up with the 73rd tetrahedron if you only stellated one side of it, the octahedron. But if you made the full stellar octangular number, you get the 37th stellar octangular number. But you're taking a 36th 36 tetrahedral number, which if each outer surface of the tetrahedron is 666 units, that's the 36 tetrahedral number. And basically it'll fit on each face of the 37th octahedral number, forming, and you can add 4 to that octahedron, and you'll end up with the 73rd tetrahedron, one big giant tetrahedron, which you can see down there with the 703 with the 666 around it. These are all at a golden angle, by the way. It's really easy to make this. So if you stellate the whole thing, you end up with the 73rd stellar octangular number. And that's called a Merkaba. And if you don't know the Hebrew obsession with the Merkaba, we didn't have to go to the book of Enoch or Metatron to get what they wanted to get from it. And they made that up. It's not even there. But this is really here. This is legit. And not only do these perfect numbers in Genesis allow you to build these structures of these polyhedra, but they unlock a scale and a pattern through circles and ratio that can create all geometry, you know? I mean, like, they're delivering. But, so, we're talking about water scrying, though. Here's a picture of water scrying from David Scryermeyer. Scryermeyer, the scrying master, David the scrying master, he is the king. And, man, so I've been tripping about mind control, because everything I'm telling you is about mind control, because the king making the kingdom has to control your mind and create the spirit of the labori in you, so you'll produce for him. But so this guy David Scryermeyer flipped out about what his own research. He don't know nothing about me. He don't know me. He's not exactly my friend. He's been cool. I tried to get him to do a podcast with another friend of mine, but I went looking to get these pictures here from his website, and he was freaking out because he was saying there's a connection between these shapes and the way that you put energy inside of water and it makes them take these forms. He said that's how the government's using weaponized mind control and project, like he said, the thing that they're doing with the water, putting the sound wave in the water to make it take a form. Water scrying, when you amplify energy into the water, it starts to stir the waters, and if it can't expand anymore, then it forces the water to move into these perfect order shapes, these symmetrical shapes, because it's the easiest way to deal with the pressure and the resistance, is to organize itself into more symmetrical forms. And he's saying that's the essence of mind control. And everything I'm telling you about royal sorcery, Satanists have been using to rule the world. And we're in their garden. And all of this stuff is instructions for how to manage a human garden. But nonetheless, like I pulled these 3 pictures from David the Scrying Master to show the three axes of polyhedral symmetry. The polygonal, the pentagonal view is face view. The triangular view is vertex view or corner view, and then the square image that you can see there on the left, that would be edge view. And these are the three symmetrical perspectives of phi-based polyhedra. Does it seem far-fetched to you? Let's see here. The verse of Genesis, which is Genesis 1 and 2, the second part of that verse says, "The Spirit of God moved upon the surface of the waters." The value of those words, Ruach, Elohim, Merkaferet, El Panei, Hamayim. The value of those words together equals 1369, which is 37 square. So 37 square is taking T37 and connecting it to T36. So the widest point from corner to corner, which is the square root of 2, by the way, or root 2, like to call it a sacred root. So you got a stack of 37 from corner to corner, and then you get triangular number 36 on both sides. If you use masculine power to divide into greater and lesser portions, one side becomes 36 and the other side becomes 37. Which I marked 703, the house of the Lord, the vessel for God. Like 666 is connected to the water. So when you see the first verse of Genesis, you got 703. That's what I was trying to show you this 37th tetrahedral number for, is because it's telling you it's building like a house for God. And the house of God is settling on the surface of the waters, where God's staring into the waters to what? Create the world? Well, if God's creating the world that he sees in the water, then he's seeing the future. He's seeing a blessing for people or a curse, because that's what wizards do when they do magic. They see spirits on the water for blessings and curses. I can't make this stuff up, y'all. But so when God's Spirit is hovering on the surface of the water, I mean, it's literally 703 above 666. It's built into the structure of the words. And I've got it depicted in a vesica because that's how I make these triangular numbers, because the circle is summon the equilateral triangle. That's what circles do. A circle plus its mirrored opposite brought into union with its opposite. Yeah, you unlock the triangle, you unlock drawing all of them. And I'm talking about how to physically create one, I suppose. But if you create an interference pattern on water, it starts to make triangular numbers patterns, triangular number series patterns, which you can see here. I'm showing you a model somebody made out of the surface of water, and I'm comparing it to just a regular interference pattern that I numbered, but it's the same exact pattern. It's legit. So if you start mirroring a point expanding in ripples, creating waves, wave interference forms triangular numbers, So you can agitate the surface of the water and count and create number and start to create the world and all things in it. This is royal sorcery. God, I have so much I'd love to say to y'all. If you add the value of the first verse of the Gospel of John, which says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," it's telling you that it goes with the first verse of Genesis. In the beginning, God created. Well, that happened in Genesis 1. If you combine the numerical values of the two verses together, you end up with the perfect triangular number, the 112th triangular number. I'm leaving something out. Before I got to this, I wanted to show you the flood. So 2,701 in a line of scripture doesn't occur but in one other place. And I was told this from a Jewish source. I haven't calculated the whole Old Testament, but these guys are legit. They that I talked to, and they say they've numbered the whole thing, and these are the 2,701 only occurs in two places. It occurs in Genesis 1 when God creates the world of Eden, and then it occurs after the flood ends. I'm just gonna say this stuff real quickly. In the beginning, God restrained the waters of chaos so humans could have a world to exist in. If there was no land, if there was no air, if there was no warmth and light, we'd all be dead. So, so God restraining the darkness and the chaos and the water is what allows us to exist. And this is like connected to the metaphor of God having to restrain his infinite light so he could exist. So not only did light equally have to be restrained, but the darkness had to be restrained too. But so when the flood happened, it's a unleashing of these restrained waters. They're unrestraining the waters of chaos and allowing them to overtake the world. And so when the flood is ending, the last line of the flood that tells you that it was over equals 2,701. And that's because 2,701 is a vessel for God's Spirit, which creates a kingdom and a king. It creates a royal knowledge, and this is the knowledge that's going to be used to create the order of the world, where the king summons the power of life and death to hold you accountable for your actions. And that's Satanism. There's so much to this stuff. I couldn't explain it to y'all in one little sitting. I've been doing a lot to help bring this to you. But, so, the two instances of creating the order of the world in the book of Genesis that accounts for the world that we live in, where a king rules us with the sword, is connected to 2,701, and that's connected to this male scale of power, which unlocks all creation, and you inherit the right to create the world. Whoever wrote the Gospel of John knew this, and so when they wrote the first verse, they knew what the first verse of Genesis was and how it operated, and they grafted Jesus together with this perfect number to say that they're going to add him to the order of the Noahidic law. Like, so Jesus plus the Noahide law, like the end of the flood marks the opening of the covenant with Noah to rule the world, with courts to hold men accountable with threat of death. Like, it... Man. So when they grab Jesus into that, they're adding Jesus to that Noahidic situation. And then, so the first verse of John equals 3,627 when you add it up. And when you add that to 2,701, you get 6,328. And that's triangular number 112. And triangular number 112 can be divided into a hexagon inside of the triangle that splits the 37th triangular number on the outside of the 38th hexagonal number. So you get the 38th hexagonal number in the middle there, which is 4,219 units. And then the pink part of the outer triangles are the 37th triangular number of 703 units. And if you divided the 38th hexagonal number by the center lines are 222 units around 1. So there's 222, which, you divide that by 6 and you get 37. I'm just playing. But 223 is a permutation of 232, which is B light, is it not? It is. I mean, these are facts. And so a form of B light is dividing the the center of this triangular number into 6 of the 36 triangular numbers. And the triangular number 36 represents the waters, where you're seeing an image of the beast rising out of the sea. So, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm telling y'all, like, man, this is just too much, man. The 112 triangular number is a really special number, and it makes all this perfect geometry in the middle there. If you cut the midpoint of this triangular number, it unlocks a whole world of geometry. I'll show you a little bit of that. But the connection between water scrying and 666, and the combination of 666 and God scrying in the surface of the waters and then being added to Christ, and then it makes this triangular number with this 666 times 6 in the middle. I mean, it looks like a scrying pool. Does this not look like a scrying pool to you? And then so the 666 being a type of the water, and it's times 6, so it's this magnified version of it. It's got the 223 in it, which that's the light in the water, so you got the sound, be light, that's the word that God created the world. That's what the writer of John's talking about. In the beginning was the word. What was the word? The word was be light, and God said it on the water, so there's light and sound in the water, and you got 223 dividing the 666. That's light in the waters to me. I mean, I see what I'm looking at. Y'all see this? So if you divide the midpoint of the 112th triangular number, you get the I don't want to tell you wrong. It's the 56th triangular number on 3 sides of the, I think it's the 55th. I don't want to tell you wrong. Let me pull it up. Yeah, so you get the 56th triangular number on 3 sides of the 55th. And the 55th triangular number is 1,540 units. And the number 1,540, you can take 1,540 units, which is in the center of combining Christ with the power of creation to unlock the order of the world. But you can take the center triangular formation of this number, and that can be transmuted into a bunch of stuff. Let me tell you. The 112 itself is the 7th septagon or heptagon, and I'll show you. Here's what the 7th heptagon looks like. Heptagonal number is the proper term. And so if you counted the units of the 7th septagon, you'll end up with 112. You can kind of follow the one around 1, 2, 3. When you get to 7, you see 8. You just kind of keep swinging back and forth. There's different ways of numbering all of this stuff, but it also makes the 19th centered nonagonal number. So you get a nonagon. 1540, you can take the shape of a perfect nonagonal number. It can take the shape of the 28th hexagonal number. It can also take the shape of the 20th decagonal number. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but the decagonal number will unlock everything. As far as polyhedra go. And it'll also form the 20th tetrahedral number. So 1,540 units, which is the center of Christ unlocking the power of creation in Genesis, unlocks the 20th tetrahedral number as well. So this is too much. I wanted to show you how this transmutes back into the Word of God, and how it transmutes into the people of God, and how this all represents the eye of the Lord. Because what's God seeing on the water is us, and he's seeing through us. That's what this stuff is saying. This is my first time trying to tell y'all this stuff in like almost 3 years. I've wanted to be quiet, and I've wanted to really, 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 really make sure I understood what all of this stuff is. I really should just teach Gematria in a go. I should really just teach Transmutation in a go. I should really just teach water scrying in a go, but it's hard for me. It's really hard for me. I love the Word of God, and it's what got me here. I'd learned all this to be a good Christian. I don't want nothing to do with no magic, and this stuff scares the snot out of me. And I'm starting to think that a group of sorcerers made up the Bible altogether, and and that the story of Jesus is them trying to tell me they're gonna kill me for trying to let y'all know what the sorcery that really brought the Bible to you. That's the $1,000,000 question. Like, was there a good sorcerer trying to teach you sorcery to do good and make the world a better place? Is the dragon just a metaphor for the ego, or is it for the king to rule the world with the power of Satan? These are questions you need to be asking yourself, and you need to be finding answers yourself too. I ain't going to tell you what to believe. It is so easy to bend all of this towards water scrying and sorcery and magic, because that's what it is. That's where these things come from. I didn't have to make that up, and you know what I mean. This is overwhelming evidence, in my opinion. Y'all can hate it and throw it away and call me crazy, whatever you want. But I think this stuff makes perfect sense. So, but we got to be accountable for our actions. We got to try to be more responsible. We got to grow up, act maturely and honor people, not degrade them and not exploit them. All of this stuff is the art of imperialism. Dividing the surface of a polygon into a bunch of units, that's how to divide a portion of land up and sell it. This is all imperialism. All the sacred geometry, you start searching the origins of it, and the Greek guys were going for the kings and to Egypt to find the secrets of measuring land so they could go and campaign for war and sell the land out, Like the heritage of the sons of God to rule the earth, It's like, if Christianity wasn't satanic from the get-go, Satanists stole it before the 4th century. Something happened with the Caesars in Israel and Jewish sorcerers. It's a Machiavellian book about making a king by imparting royal knowledge and teaching him to manage a human garden. And these sorcerers that practice water scrying, and they go and they reveal this royal knowledge to some poor sap and make him a king. Is that not what they're doing? The prophets are doing in the book. The books of the kings is the prophets are making kings. What happens? It's a story that scatters them into the whole known world. It's a sales pitch, is what it is. Doesn't matter if any of that was true. You got these wizards going around that are scattered into the whole world, and what do? They start hanging out in king's courts and having the power of God and getting the king on their side. And so they're in Babylon, and they get a Messiah, the king of Persia, to come and bail them out of Babylon, you see? And so they're doing right and left-handed already. Like they put the Caesars on, and to put the Caesars on against themselves and destroyed Jerusalem, and then freed themselves to go take over the rest of the world. And I'm not blaming the Jews, and I'm not, some people have used this book in this way, and it's not hard to, half the reason I figured this out was a bunch of royal Bibles full of magical pictures, they're Bibles, God help us. But maybe I'll release this. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But we need to love people, and exploitation is not love. And if we've been exploited and if we've had people use religion to enslave us by controlling what we can become and what we think we can become and what we believe about ourselves, ruling us with shame and inferiority and degradation and threats, fear of not just being tortured once but forever, a million times over. These are invisible. That somebody conjured an invisible force to stop you from being a raper and a murderer, and they added turning a blind eye while they've massacred and raped the world to death to it. So you can be a good Christian as long as you work your 9 to 5. Hail Caesar. Hail Satan. The Satanists have been trying to put these numbers in people's faces in their stories and in their movies. It's everywhere. Like, wake up.